Can you still fit the jeans that you wore in high school? Or do you still wear the shoes that you wore in high school? Probably not, but if you were to go into your high school classroom, your old high school classroom, would much look different? Well, many people across the nation are saying that they don't, that high school classes are largely unchanged, which is why legislation is calling for drastic changes in high school classrooms. We'll talk about that today, as well as curriculum or standards, curriculum or standards, curriculum or standards. Which one takes precedence when it comes to planning effective lessons? You'll get that answer here today. And I'll answer a community question about how to last after the honeymoon phase has ended and we're into the year. All of that on today's episode of New Teacher Big Impact, the podcast. Impact starts now. Welcome to New Teacher Big Impact, the podcast, where we help teachers become the teachers they've always wanted to be and make the impact you've always wanted to make. This is season 2, episode 2. Glad that you are here with us. I am former terrible teacher turned 2-time teacher of the year, Daryl Williams Jr. And what you'll notice today is that we have some segments that we're rolling out for this season. So I'll explain to you what the segments are, and you'll be sure to know when they're coming. I'll let you know what's going on. But we have the warning bell, followed by the teacher toolbox, followed by new teacher quick tips, and the teacher's lounge, and we leave with an exit ticket. So all of those segments are coming to you here today, and I hope that you are super interested and excited to see what they're all about. But I do need to let you know that all segments in this whole season is actually brought to us by Impact. And if you don't know what Impact is the solution for your professional development needs. Because if you ever had a dream to be the teacher you've always wanted to be and make the impact you've always wanted to make, but you don't know how to get better at the skills that you need, but you're frustrated with the fact that you have to wait for professional development that sometimes ends up being boring, irrelevant, or unhelpful, or you're not feeling supported in your own building, or you're spending a lot of money and seeing incremental gains. That's why we created Impact, because through Impact, you are able to access a full library of trainings that are interesting and engaging and that are aligned to the things that you need. Think about it like Hulu for your professional development needs, where you can go and find the training that you need for the skills that you lack. And you have access to a full community of supportive educators from around the world that can help you on your journey. And the most important part is that we thought of the educator when creating this. So you get access to the full community and engaging resources, as well as the full course library for just $13 for the month that you want access to it with hassle-free cancellation. So if you are interested in Impact, click the link in the description or in the show notes down below to sign up today and become the teacher you've always wanted to be. Make the impact you've always wanted to make. Let's get started with today's warning bell. The warning bell is where I share a news story from somewhere around the nation that is impacting educators. And even if it's not impacting you right now, warning, it could impact you eventually. And this article is taken from Ed Weekly, where we're talking about how high school classes are largely unchanged. And if you think about it, I know I have some high school teachers that are here, a part of the podcast. I know I have some lower school teachers, but what they're saying is high school classes are largely unchanged. If you look in high school classrooms, they have their 7 blocks a day, 7 periods a day, or 4 periods a day, however many you have, but they're just sitting in the desks and they're learning and they're getting ready for the SAT and the ACT and, college readiness. And what they're saying is that is how it's been for decades, if not centuries, right? And what we noticed after the pandemic is that there's been this chronic absenteeism where students in high school are not coming or they're dropping out, and we try to understand why. And one of the reasons that people are citing is saying, well, it's because the classes are not helpful. Not that they're not interesting, or not that they're not boring, or not that they're not engaging, but that people are realizing like this is not really setting me up for success, which is super interesting. Because the reality is the post-secondary landscape has actually changed, and the fact that we're shifting less and less to focusing on book knowledge in the workforce and more about applicable skills. Right? Like real actual readiness, hands-on experience. Do you actually know how to do this thing? Can you actually understand how to utilize AI, right? Not necessarily do you know American history. And again, I'm not saying, this is the article, this is not me. I'm not saying that these are not things that are important. I'm saying that the workforce is shifting, right? Right, where as you're noticing, even as educators, you may say, man, it's almost like the master's degree is the barrier of entry. It's like sometimes it's in some states, it's a requirement to have your master's degree to be a teacher. And what they're saying is, well, it's not necessarily just about, do they have this information? It's, can they actually apply it? right? As we're becoming more competitive, can they actually apply it? So in trying to get ahead of the curve and not get falling behind, there are a couple of states like Colorado, Delaware, and Indiana that have actually started overhauling some of their curriculum, and they began replacing it with more curriculum that is aligned to some in-demand industries. So one of the things that the article highlighted Chesterton High School in Indiana. And one of the things that they have started doing as of 2023 is that they've embedded into their course schedule in a time for internships. I think that's super cool. So for seniors, they have a time in their schedule for internships where they're allowed to go and get hands-on experience in a field of interest for them. So yes, there's CTE classes and yes, they have, other access, but now they've incorporated internships, and their goal was to have 50% of their students engaging in these experiences, and they actually had 65% of their graduating class had engaged in some sort of internship before even setting foot on a college campus. And that is huge because the article points to recent reports that are showing that there is a disparity between what the workforce is considering to be workforce ready and what high schools are producing as somebody who is actually ready to step into the workforce. And with a decline in the amount of people that are going to that are going to college, we're saying, man, these students are leaving high school not ready to enter the workforce, not going to college. That means, like, who's going to take these jobs? So what Chesterton High School and other schools like it have decided is, let's help them to actually be workforce ready when they leave us. And the reason why I bring all this up, and that was just a synthesis of the article, is because so now legislation in those states that I just mentioned is, especially Indiana, they're seeing these things and they're saying, wow, okay, if this is what the workforce needs in our state, right? If we need more people to do these jobs here in our state, wouldn't it be great if we can have homegrown talent? So what they're doing now is they're saying it makes a lot of sense to implement these internship opportunities at the high school level. So for those that are not going to college, or those that are looking to try to get into the workforce, try to make a livable wage right out of high school, let's give them access and opportunity to have these skills so that they can begin working right away. And the reason why I bring all this up is because we know that we are in a copycat society. So if this is something that is being successfully done in Indiana, in Colorado, and in Delaware, I can imagine that eventually, if down the line we see that their workforce, their unemployment gap is starting to reduce, and their workforce is becoming to be more strong, and they have more homegrown talent, like people that were born in Indiana are staying in Indiana and getting workable wage jobs or highly successful jobs without even necessarily going to college, or just being, more qualified than another candidate, and they're keeping their homegrown talent in their home state. Other states are going to want to implement this as well. So what does that mean for us as educators? I'm glad you asked. Because now, if we have internship becoming a mandatory component of the high school experience, then that means that something's got to go, or something's got to be accelerated. So maybe they're going to start to take away some electives, or they're going to start to shorten the lifespan of some courses. Maybe Calc 1 and Calc 2 gets smushed into one course, which would be crazy. So I hope that doesn't happen, because I'm not even, I just said that, but I hope that does not even happen. But they're going to have to find that time from somewhere. So they're going to have to take it from somewhere. So maybe that means that they're going to take these standards and start smushing them down into lower school. That's where you come in, K8. So maybe the math that they were, or the English that they were taking, English 1, maybe that becomes an 8th grade course to give them time to have an internship their senior year. So I'm not saying this is happening right now. I'm not saying this is happening next week. I'm not saying it's happening this next school year. But what I'm saying is, keep your eye out on it. That's why it's called the warning bell, because I'm noticing that this could lead to a potential shift. And let me know in the comment section down below, do you think this is a good idea or a bad idea to have students have hands-on internship experiences while they are in high school before they even set foot on a college campus? Let me know. But if that is the case, if they're starting to accelerate some things, then what is going to mean for the rest of us is that we need to make sure that we can plan effective lessons. Because if we have to now accelerate the information that is taught, we have to know what to spend time on versus what not to spend time on. And that's actually what we're going to dive deep into right here, right now on the Teacher Toolbox. And during the Teacher Toolbox, I share a principle that you need to understand in order to be highly effective. These are foundational skills that once you master these, you can truly become the teacher you've always wanted to be and make the impact you've always wanted to make. So we'll get into the teacher toolbox right after this. Before we get to the next point, I just have to let you know that my book, 99% Human, 1% Amazing, right now is free. All you have to do is cover the cost of shipping and I'll get it directly to you. So check the link in the description below. If you're receiving value from this video, you'll probably love the book. Why are we talking about lesson planning? We don't like lesson plans. We don't want to do lesson plans. Like, why can't I just get up there and teach? Lesson planning is super important, and that's why it's the focus of our teacher toolbox today, because in your teacher toolbox, you need to know how to plan lessons. There's no way around it. Whether or not you like your school's template, whether you think the lesson plan needs to be 10 pages or whether it could be written down on a napkin, lessons need to be planned. And here's why. When I think about it for myself, I know that, I'll put it like this. I played kickball last night. And when I was in elementary school growing up and things like that, they were like, let's play kickball. I can just go. I get up, I run. It's easy. We're just playing kickball. And afterwards, I would go back to class. I would be sweaty and stinky and stuff like that. But I'll go back to class and go on as normal. Never thought about it again. Well, last night, I'm a 31-year-old male now. Yeah, I'm in this adult kickball league with my wife and my other friends. And we're having a good time. But about 15 minutes before the game, we're all on the sideline stretching. Can I see if I can touch my toes? Grab my knees, stretching my quad. Because in order for me to have a successful experience now at this age, I have to make sure that I spend time in the preparation and planning phase. The whole day I was drinking water. I said, listen, I got to get at least half a gallon in me because I don't want to go out here and cramp up. You know what I'm saying? I have to spend time in the preparation phase so that when I go out there, I have an enjoyable, fun, and effective experience. We lost 10-2, but nonetheless, it was fun and we had a good time, and most importantly, nobody left injured. The reason why I'm saying that is because we spend time in the preparation and planning phase so that the execution was effective. And the same thing is said about lesson plannings. When you spend time in the preparation and planning phase, then the execution can be effective. I know that you know the content, or I think that you know the content, or I know that you think you know the content, right? I know that you are the authority in that classroom. I know you went to 7th grade so you can teach 7th grade science. I get all that. But in the planning phase, that's when you really think about, okay, what is it that I need students to understand in this lesson? How am I going to be sure that they got it? What are some things that may throw them off? What are some questions they may have? What are some of the pitfalls they may come across? As you're asking yourself these questions in the planning phase, it's going to lead to effective execution. So today, in our teacher toolbox, I'm going to help you understand what is the foundation that you need to have an effective lesson. If we're taking notes, now's the time. But I also want to mention that this course that I'm giving you a snippet of was just released on Impact at the time of recording this. It is our focus for the month of October, properly planning effective lessons. So if you're looking for the whole entire course, you got access to it by clicking the link below and signing up for Impact. But here we go. The foundations of lesson planning. Why does planning even matter, right? I know the content, right? But just like we said, when you spend time in effective planning, that's going to lead to effective outcomes. So people may ask, what is the foundation? Is it curriculum? Is it standards? Is it curriculum? Is it standards? And the reality of the situation is, I need you to hear me say this, curriculum is a resource. Standards are your foundation. Curriculum is a resource. You may be in a system that gave you a curriculum and said, we need to teach this curriculum with fidelity. You may be in a system that gave you curriculum and they're not even checking if you're using the curriculum, but you think, okay, it's easier if I just go based off of the curricular guide, where it says I should spend a day and a half on this lesson. It says I should spend 3 days on this topic. Maybe it's easier for you to just base things on the curriculum. Or you may be in a system that didn't give you a curriculum at all, and you wish you had a curriculum because you got to pull these things together. Regardless of the situation that you are in, curriculum is a resource. Standards are your foundation. And the reason why standards are your foundation are because, well, I like to think about it like the parable of Jesus, and when he told the story about the house being built on the sand versus the house being built on the rock. The house that was built on the rock was built on something that was strong and unchanging. The house that was built on the sand was built on sand, which was flexible and wishy-washy. And when a storm came, the house that was built on the sand was torn down. The house that was built on the rock remained standing. And it's the same thing when we're thinking about curriculum versus standards. How many times have you seen where a curriculum was brought into school and we're all saying we have to abide by this curriculum, and 2-3 years later, that curriculum was canceled? Like, a news article came out and said, this is actually not the most effective way to teach students, and now the district does away with it. Or somebody comes in at a cheaper asking price and the district, to save money, goes with a different curriculum. Now we're doing this with Fidelity. Like, curriculum is wishy-washy. And to be honest, curriculum is created by companies that are trying to sell as many as possible, so they're gonna be as vanilla as possible. You know what I'm saying? Like, they wanna base it on the standards, but they wanna be able to appeal to the masses. They don't know your specific students. They don't know your specific struggles. They don't know the things that you know and the things that you can't do. So they have to be broad, right? They have to kind of be wide-reaching. But the standards, one, are what students are being assessed on, and two, is what students need to know to be able to effectively move on to the next lesson or to the next grade level, to whatever the next step is. So standards need to be your foundation, while curriculum can be a resource. And again, if you're in a system where they're saying we teach the curriculum with fidelity, cool. There are ways that you can have that curriculum and teach it with fidelity while still adding your flair, still adding your spice, still adding your uniqueness, and make the impact that only you can. And we're actually going to talk about that in either episode 3 or 4. So stick around for the next episode where we talk about how to use curriculum with match it with your own uniqueness. But to answer the question, curriculum or standards has to be the foundational skills. It has to be the foundation. Things are built on the standards. And don't hear me say that we're teaching to the test, because I'm not saying we're teaching to the test. But what I'm saying is, this is what students are tested on. They're tested on the standards, and not tested on the curriculum. State tests are not based on curriculum, it's based on standards. So our lessons should be based on standards as well. So standards are your foundation, it's your bedrock. So we want to make sure that we understand that. And the most important thing that we can do is really understand what those standards are and how to teach them. And that's where we want to make sure that we land. This is the tool that you add to your toolbox. How do you unpack the standards? What we'll link in the show notes is the standards unpacking guide, which is going to be Common Core just because that's what most states have adopted. But I'm sure you can easily find one for your state if you're not a Common Core state, or if you're out of the country. Which I didn't know Common Core went out of the country. I was talking to one of the Impact members, and he's in Iceland, and he said they use Common Core in Iceland as well. So I didn't even know that. I thought that was a USA thing. But what I need you to know is that in order to unpack the standards, here's the one thing that you can get. When you're reading through the standard, there's going to be a verb in every single standard. That is what I want you to key into. When you're thinking about what that standard is, lock in on the verb, because the verb is going to tell you what to, come on, English teachers, is going to tell you what to do. I remember that Nickelodeon, I think, commercial growing up. It was like, verb, it's what you do, right? And I always remember that. A verb is what you do. So when you look at the verb, it may say compute, it may say calculate, it may say interpret, it may say understand, it may say comprehend, it may say design, it may say, there's a verb for your standard. And that should say, okay, I need students to be able to do this thing. Pull that word out, then read through the rest of the standard, and it's telling you what you need students to be able to do. The reason why that's important is because there's a big difference between designing something and calculating something. Or maybe that's not a good example. There's a big difference between understanding something and interpreting something. Or predicting. Predicting is a lot different than understanding. Or calculating something is different than understanding. Comprehending. I'll stick with comprehending. Comprehending and calculating are different. Calculating means I could put this in a calculator. I just need to know the steps to take. Comprehending means I'm going to have to be able to explain how I came across this. So that's why I'm bringing it up. Understand what the verb is, because you may have a verb of understanding and you just teach students an algorithm. You just teach students calculator strokes. And then when they're sitting down for the test, the state test, one is in the non-calculator active portion of the test, and two, it's asking them the reason behind the Pythagorean theorem. Like, why does a squared plus b squared equal c squared? And they're just like, I just know how to solve the formula, right? So One of the ways that we get misaligned is when we are not looking at the verb and highlighting the verb that standard is pulling out. So look at the verb that the standard is pulling out. And what you're gonna do is break that down into manageable chunks. So watch this, here's the game changer, because we don't teach standard in a single lesson. That's not it. You don't teach standards in a single lesson. I hope nobody thought that. But I'm gonna let you know how to get to your lesson right here, right now. You look at the standard that needs to be taught. What is the thing that students need to be able to do? And then you're breaking that down into chunks. What are the things students have to do in order to do this thing, the verb, whatever that verb is? Let's say calculate. What do students need to do in order to calculate this thing? List everything you could possibly think of, all the things that you could think of that students would have to do. Watch this. Last time I said this, somebody got mixed up, so take your time and hear me on this. After you list down all those things, maybe you have 10 things, maybe you have 12 things. The things that students can already do, you leverage to help them be able to do the things that they can't do yet. Okay? So watch this. I'm gonna say it one more time. You have the standard, you look at the verb, and you ask yourself, what do students need to be able to do to achieve this verb? List all the things students have to do in order to be able to achieve this verb. It may be 10, it may be 15, it may be 20 things. List all of them out. Now, the things that students can already do, maybe they can already do 5 of those things. Those things we use to help them teach the things that they don't know how to do yet. And all of those are called objectives. All of those are called objectives. So the standards are broken down into chunks that we call objectives. Objectives are what you teach in every lesson. It's built on the standards, but it's a manageable chunk. The objectives that they have already mastered, you leverage to help them master the objectives that they haven't learned yet. And if you're breaking it down into objectives, the next step would be then figuring out how long it would take to teach this objective. If they're 1 objective per lesson, can I get 2 objectives in this lesson, or on this day, in this class period? Whatever it is, you're breaking it down into objectives, and the objectives then become the recipe, the main ingredient of the recipe for your lesson. All right, so in your teacher toolbox, I don't want to give you too much today, but I need you to understand curriculum is a resource, standards are the foundation, and when you build your foundation on standards, you break those standards down into manageable chunks that we call objectives, and lessons are built on objectives. All right, so add that to your teacher toolbox and you are on your way to delivering effective lessons to help improve student achievement and become the teacher you've always wanted to be and make the impact that you've always wanted to make. And now we're heading into the segment that I like to call New Teacher Quick Tips, where I just give you one quick tip, just one quick tip that you can apply in your classroom super easily, super simply today, that's going to lead to a massive change. And we're going to get to that tip right after I remind you about the Pursuit of Excellence store. You see the New Teacher Big Impact hoodie here. You see the Good Teachers Teach Students, Good Teachers Teach Subjects, Great Teachers Teach Students t-shirt here. And I just wanted to let you know that we are committed to making sure that we put designs out that not only look good, but are giving a message that we are student-centered, that we love on our students, that we care about our students, and that we support them as well. And through the Pursuit of Excellence merch is a great way for you to show your support for student learning. This is actually our bestseller right here. The Good Teachers Teach Subjects, but Great Teachers Teach Students design. So you can get yours by looking for the link in the description down below, or going to darylwilliamsjr.shop. But now it's time for our New Teacher Quick Tip. And our New Teacher Quick Tip is to celebrate the small wins. Celebrate the small wins. The reason why that is a quick tip, or the reason why that's our tip, is because sometimes we look at the end goal, and because we haven't achieved the end goal yet, we feel like we're not successful. And I just need you to understand that that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes we have big dreams, which are great. Sometimes we have large goals, which is fantastic. Sometimes we have a huge vision, which is amazing. But sometimes because the dreams, the goals, and the visions are so big and so far out, if we wait until we achieve it to celebrate, then all that interim time, we could get weary. Like we could lose hope, we could lose focus, because a lot of times our our path towards achieving the goal is not necessarily a linear process. So it's not necessarily sometimes we get better day by day by day by day. Some days are good. Maybe some days we have bad days. Right? Maybe with student achievement on one unit they do well, and the next unit they regress, or maybe they score lower. And if we look at it like that, we say, man, things aren't really actually getting better. But if we can celebrate the small wins along the way and celebrate the progress, then we can feel good about ourselves, and we can help students to feel good about themselves as well, that we are on track. We may not be there yet, but remember, yet, Y-E-T, means you'll eventually triumph. There'll be ups, there'll be downs. Celebrate the ups. Figure out what we have to do in those down moments to get back on track. But ultimately, if we just wait until the end, we won't have that opportunity to celebrate along the way. Think about it like a sports season. The goal of every sports season is to win whatever respective championship they have, whether it's a Super Bowl, whether it's the World Series, whether it's the World Cup. Everybody wants to win that, right? But they still have games. They still have games week to week. There's only been one team that's won every single game that I can think of in major sports, and that was the 1970 Dolphins that didn't lose a single game. But for everybody else, literally everybody else that has ever played the sport, you win some games, you lose some games. But I see the videos on Instagram, and I see them like celebrating in the locker room after they win the game. Because after they win the game, you celebrate. You feel good about yourselves. We did this thing. We're one step closer to our goal. After you lose a game, you regroup. You figure out what we need to do to get back on the winning side. But you celebrate the wins throughout the season. And you still have a big, huge celebration and parade when you win the Super Bowl as well. So celebrate the wins along the way, but not just student wins, not just your own wins. Celebrate both. Make sure that you are celebrating wins with students, showing them what the goal is, showing them your trajectory towards the goal, showing them what they're doing along the way. And celebration doesn't always mean that it has to cost money. Celebration could be that we're having it could be a free period. It could be an extra recess, if your school allows for that. It could be a pizza party, right? But celebrate some of the wins along the way. It could be recognition, seeing if the principal can shout them out on the intercom if they're doing announcements. But just sending a newsletter telling them how proud of them you are, a newsletter to the families, just celebrating their progress and their wins along the way, because that helps them to feel great and to sustain and say, man, once they see success, then it allows them to want to see more. And once I see a glimmer of success, it reaffirms in me that I can actually do this thing, and I'm going to take another step. I can take one more step to being better, all right? But then also celebrate your wins. Aside from the students, remember that you that is showing up consistently, you that is showing up daily, you that is showing up on the days that you don't want to, you that get there early when you can, and sometimes you skate in right when the bell is ringing, but you're still there. You that is showing up doing the best that you can, even when students are not giving their best. You that's showing up, even when students are calling you out of your name, and still showing up to make sure that you're giving them the best version of yourself you can. When you're showing up on the days that you don't feel like it, you can celebrate your wins as well. So do things for yourself. Celebrate, take yourself out to eat, have your self-care, whatever floats your boat and suits your fancy. Make sure that you are celebrating your wins. Don't just wait until the end of the year to reflect and see how you did, but celebrate along the way, right? Celebrate, like, listen, we are getting better. We are one step closer to our goal. I'm getting better as an educator. I feel more confident in the classroom. I enjoy teaching again. Celebrate yourself as well. So our new teacher quick tip of the week is to celebrate the small wins. Don't just wait until the end. We're transitioning now into the Teacher's Lounge. The Teacher's Lounge, in this segment of the Teacher's Lounge, this is where anybody can ask a question and I will answer the question for you. And most of the time, in my experience, it's a question that not just one person has had, but in me answering it, it really frees everybody else. So how do you get to ask a question? Questions are submitted by our Impact community members. So if you are interested in submitting a question for it to be answered here on the podcast, become a member of Impact by clicking the link in the description below, and then submit a question and let us know, this is a question I would like answered on the podcast, and I'll answer it right here. So this first question is coming from Ashley, and the question is, how do we continue to last? How do we continue to last even after the honeymoon has ended to start the year? That actually is an amazing question because I know that there are so many people. Let me know if this is you. If you were excited to kind of go back to school, a little bit excited, a little bit anxious, a little bit nervous, but we're going back to school. Day one was really good. You know, they came in there quiet and you said, man, this is going to be an amazing year. Day two, they may have started showing a little bit of behaviors. By the end of week one, you can identify who are going to be the ones. You know what I mean? Like who are going to be the ones that, okay, I have to pay a little bit more attention to that. But it's still, after the first week. But then things start to unravel a little bit, and after my principal last year, she used to say, once that first crease gets in those new sneakers, that's when the school year actually starts, right? Because everybody comes with their hair all nice, the outfit's all clean and fresh, the brand new sneakers on day one. They said once you see a crease in the sneaker, that's when you know the school year has started. And so the honeymoon has ended. For a lot of us at this point of the year, and students are wide open. They're not the exact same students we saw on day one. How do you continue to last? I set my expectations. I put my classroom management system in place. I communicated with parents. I tried to proactively get out ahead of some of the things that I would come across. But still, the honeymoon phase has ended, and now I'm seeing the student behaviors really ramp up, or I'm seeing students become disengaged, or I'm seeing, grades are coming in and some students are performing well, some students are not. How do I continue to last now that the honeymoon phase is over? And my answer is not sexy. I was trying to think of another word, but that's the only thing I can think of. It's not fun, but the answer is consistency. The answer has to be consistency. And I actually was just watching a reel on Instagram about 2 hours ago, and I wonder if I'll be able to find it. If I can find it, I'll send it to the design team, the editing team, to put it on the screen, to overlay it right here. Overlay it right here, design team, if you guys, if I found it. If not, just listen, I'll describe it. But it was a real life version of the tortoise and the hare. And we've probably read the story of the tortoise and the hare, but in this Instagram reel, they put a tortoise down, and they put a hare down next to it. And the hare, even before you put it down, you see his legs were moving. And when they released him, he started going. And the tortoise just took it step by step and step by step. And the tortoise, he had a quick burst of energy. I'm sorry, the hare, I'm confusing you. I'm so sorry. I keep hare, tortoise, turtle. Follow me, I got you, watch this. The hare had a quick burst of energy, just pop, 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 pop. But then stopped, started getting distracted, started looking around. But on the other side, the tortoise was just boom, one step, boom, two step, boom. The tortoise just kept going. And now people were encouraging the hare. I don't know if they were betting on this race. I'm not a betting guy. I'd never bet on anything because of examples just like this. But the people were like, go, go, go. And they were talking to the hare, and they were trying to entice the hare to go. They were holding a feather in front of it, trying to make the hare get to the finish line. And the hare was like looking around and getting distracted and started going backwards a little bit and darted forward, but kind of came back. And the tortoise on the other side was just boom, 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 just one step at a time, boom, boom, just going. And eventually, the tortoise ended up crossing the finish line, and the hare was stuck about halfway down the track, distracted by something else. And in the caption, it said, this is the difference between consistency and motivation. Consistency is a tortoise, one step, just go. Take your time, one step. Like every day is a new day. I'm gonna keep putting 1 foot forward. I'm gonna keep trying the best that I can. I'm gonna do my thing. I'm gonna keep it going. Like today wasn't a good day, but I'm gonna keep stepping, right? Student achievement isn't what I thought it was gonna be, but I'm gonna keep stepping, right? Student behaviors, they're starting to ramp up, I'm gonna keep stepping. Consistency says, I'm going to stay true to what I said I was gonna do. Consistency says, I'm gonna use this classroom management system that I designed, and we're gonna stick with it. Right? We're not gonna get lax. We're not gonna get soft. We're not gonna let things slide. I'm gonna stick with it, right? Because eventually we cross the finish line. Eventually we get to the point where they're gonna try you, especially right after the honeymoon phase. They're gonna try to see what they can get away with. But if you respond with consistency, no, every time you do that, boom, here's the reaction. No, here's always the expectation. No, this is the standard. This is what we do. If you continue to reroute them, boom, continue to go, boom, one step at a time, continue to make it happen, then you cross the finish line on top. Motivation is the hare. Motivation is we got excited at the beginning of the year. We go out and put all these initiatives in place, and we go. We're gonna use this candy jar as our incentive. And every time you get 4 Lux points, then you're gonna, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that's a bad idea. It's only bad if it's inconsistent. It's only bad if you got excited about that, and then after 3 weeks and the candy was gone, you never went back to the store and refilled it. So now students are like, okay, so you were just saying things. But when you are consistent, when you can hold them to the expectation, when you remain the standard to keep the same, that's what it looks like on a tortoise side. Whereas the hare just looks like a burst of motivation, and then once you're no longer motivated, once the honeymoon phase is ended, then you just want to, I'm good. And that is not what is best for students, and that's not going to get our students closer to the finish line. So to answer your question, how do we remain motivated? How do we last even after the honeymoon phase is ended? Just keep taking steps and remain consistent. Remain consistent. Hold firm to those expectations. Hold students to those standards. Set the expectation high. Support students to get there. Remain consistent. Not every day is going to be a good day, but not every day is going to be a bad day. But every day is a new day, and we can keep pushing forward until we get to the end. So, again, hopefully that was helpful, not just to Ashley, but to anybody else. And if you want to ask a question, you can ask it in Impact. Link is in the description below for you to sign up. So our exit ticket today, what kind of effective educator would I be if I didn't leave with an exit ticket? And an exit ticket is a strategy that we use as another component of an effective lesson. The components of effective lessons say that you need to have formative assessments, and lesson plan, exit tickets are an example of a formative assessment where we check what happened throughout the lesson to see if students got the lesson objective. Well, in this objective, I needed to make sure that you understood that as we're moving forward to as the workforce is changing, the educational landscape is going to change as well. So we're looking for more hands-on opportunities in high school. They've already started in a couple of different states. It may be coming to your state. Be on the lookout for that. And if that's coming, that may shorten the time that we have to teach some of these lessons, which is why it's so important to plan effective lessons. So we talked about curriculum versus standards. What is the foundation? And you should know the answer now that the standards are the foundation of your lesson. You unpack the standards to create objectives that design your lesson. And remember, you're going to celebrate those wins along the way, because you may not get your overall goal today, but just because it doesn't happen immediately doesn't mean it won't happen eventually. Celebrate the wins along the way. And even after the honeymoon phase is over, remain consistent, step by step, hold them to high expectations, support them along the way, and you can be the teacher you've always wanted to be and make the impact you've always wanted to make. You've got this. I just need you to understand that I've been in your shoes, and so have millions of other teachers. And nobody can do the thing that you do the way that you do it. Right? Nobody can plan the lessons the way that you can. Nobody's going to bring what you bring to that particular lesson, to that particular day. And remember, don't hide the things that set you apart, but highlight them to make the impact and the difference that only you can make. Super excited that you joined us here today. And remember, if you would like to have the solution to your professional development needs, if you're tired of boring professional development, if you're tired of paying a lot of money for small incremental gains, if you're tired of feeling unsupported, we have courses, we have community, we have coaching inside of Impact, where again, just for like $13, you can have access to the whole entire course library, where you can talk classroom management. We're talking about lesson planning. We're talking about making sure that student engagement, all these things that you can see. And as a matter of fact, you can get started for free by watching Classroom Management Made Simple, also linked in the description below. If you go to the Impact Course homepage, you can watch a free course just to see what I'm talking about. I'm sure that it'll be impactful. Make sure that you come back and let us know that it helped you. So in the comment section down below, let us know, what is your takeaway from today? What is your action step moving forward? How are you going to implement what you learned in the Teacher Toolbox to make sure that you plan more effective lessons that lead to student success? Let us know in the comment section. I'm super excited to read it. But most importantly, here's one of the things I wanted to do. I want you to share this podcast with somebody. And today, I want you to share this podcast with a teacher on your hallway. Share this podcast with a teacher on your hallway and let them know, hey, you're amazing. You can do great things. And I just want you to know that. All right. So excited that you would join us here today for New Teacher Big Impact, the podcast. I will see you next week, where we will help you become the teacher you've always wanted to be and make the impact you've always wanted to make. I'll see you soon.